All right, today I am so thrilled to have an amazing guest, a friend of mine, and welcome Juan to my podcast, The Energized Leader.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much, Desi.
Yeah, we met last June, and I think we clicked right away. Not only did we sit right next to each other, but I just felt like we were going to be friends for a long time, and I actually learned a lot from you. You are an amazing speaker. And so we need to, first of all, tell everybody who you are, your experience with being an American Ninja Warrior. So go ahead and take the floor.
Yes, again, thank you so much, Desi, for having me. I'm excited to be with your crew here and all your listeners. For me, I knew that this was my calling and my path ever since I was a junior in high school. I saw the speaker that spoke and he shared a message on creating your own destiny. And that was the first time I ever heard someone say that you have a part in your success, regardless of your age, your background, you can create your own destiny and success in life. And not only did he impact my life, but 300 other students. And it was a light bulb moment. I was thinking, wow, I love helping people, but I don't know how. But in that moment, it helped me to realize that if I were to do this, I can help more people in my lifetime versus just having only one-on-one conversations. So he set me on this path. He became a mentor. And so when I went through university, everything had this filter in mind. Fortunately, I ran across a lot of other mentors, and one of them gave me Tony Robbins CDs. And one thing that I resonated most with Tony Robbins was it's not just about succeeding financially or your health, but in every aspect of your life, your relationships, your emotional well-being. And so I eventually took $2,500, money that the financial aid office gave me an extra reimbursement. I took it, I sat front row to see Tony Robbins, and I said, I want to work with the best. So when I graduated from college, I worked as a peak performance strategist for Tony Robbins. Then after a couple of years, that's when I started my speaking business. And it's been 17 years that I've been fortunate enough to travel around the world to make a positive impact in other people's lives.
Well, right now, I think you're kind of known for being on American Ninja Warrior.
Yes.
So tell how that I know the story, but tell how that happened and then tell the experience because I mean, wow, what an experience that happened for you.
It's interesting where I never had an intent to be on American Ninja Warrior. My goal was simply to be on TV. And one day I was at the CrossFit gym at my cousin's place and I was climbing his peg wall. And then his co-owner snapped a picture of me and they posted it on their Facebook page saying, Hoan Do, beastin' the peg wall, hashtag American Ninja Warrior. And when I saw that, I'm thinking, oh yeah, I've seen that show before. I'm like, you know what? Let's check it out. So I just Google American Ninja Warrior and I found a site that says, oh, you want to be on the show? Fill out this application and share a video sharing who you are and you competing on different obstacle courses. And so we put together a video, we submitted it, and we got selected to be on the show. And it was such an incredible experience. And just like anything else, though, what people see on TV is not reality. So I always love to share that. I found a coach that was on the show a year prior. So I got to learn from him to what to prepare for. And his biggest thing, he said, Juan, once you get there, you'll be waiting for a while. So don't waste all your energy. So I remember I got there at 6 p.m. and they kind of herd us like cattle. So we're all just kind of waiting here until our turn. And I was maybe number 15 or 16 to go. It started at 8 o'clock at night. And as each person goes, it takes actually a while because on TV, you see a person fall in the water or make it to the course, and then next person goes. Well, the reality is, one person falls in the water, it takes 10 minutes for everyone to dry off all the obstacles that got wet, and then it's the next person. So it started at 8 o'clock at night. By the time I went, it was actually like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Two
And
o'clock in the morning to do your
yes,
everything. Oh my goodness, I I
yes,
don't know if
yes.
I could do that.
But it was a very unique experience meeting other individuals that had the same goal. And the best part was everyone was so just encouraging and supportive. It wasn't like you against me against you, but it's like, man, great job, way to go. And it was people from different walks of life where we had people that camped out for an entire week to have a chance because they weren't selected. We had people in business, in professional life. You had people from different age groups. So it was a beautiful experience that gave me the opportunity to have more learning lessons, which then I can share within my keynotes and workshops.
So, what was the preparation for American Ninja Warrior?
Yeah, preparation, it's very different from just going to the gym, right? Because there's no workout equipment where you're practicing hanging on these small 1 inch pieces of wood. And so I think the important thing was finding someone that has been on that road to really help shorten the mistakes I'd make in the path of success. So he had a gym where he had equipment that was similar to on the show. In addition to that, when I was traveling and speaking at different organizations, wherever I would travel to, I would Google Ninja Warrior Gym, whatever city I was in. So I had a chance to learn from other people and practice on different obstacles. And that's what helped prepare me to compete in the show.
How long did you have to prepare?
After getting selected, I believe it was in beginning of like January where I heard the news, and I had maybe 3 months until I flew down to Venice Beach, California, and then competed on the course.
You only had 3 months to be in shape? Well, you probably were already in shape. Wow. How did you prepare mentally?
Mentally, a really big part was one visualization. That's something I always learned when I was young. I was a wrestler in high school, and my older brother, he wrestled on a collegiate level, nationally ranked. And that was one of the biggest lessons that he taught me is that you see every single detail of you succeeding, you encountering challenges, how you adapted, and then just constantly replay that in your mind. So that was one of the biggest things was the mental visualization of preparing for the event. And then two is, seeking wisdom from people who've been there. So when I traveled and I spoke to different people that competed on American Ninja Warrior, they're able to share those little pearls of wisdom that help me to mentally know what to expect. But then also it's like, hey, that simple tip of like when you get there and people have a trampoline to warm up, a lot of people will waste their energy. So just relax. So knowing that when I got there at 6 o'clock and people started competing at 8, I didn't waste all that energy that first hour or two when I technically went like 8 hours later.
So you were a finalist. So that means how far did you get in the process?
Yeah, so being a city finalist, what it means is at first, everyone competes on a city level. And let's say, for example, there's 100 people. From there, it gets cut down to 30 people. And then from there, it gets down to 15 that goes on a national level. So
Gotcha.
I made it that first cut to 30 people, and I
Oh,
just missed it for the national finals.
oh. But you know what? I still think the fact that you got that far to be selected, I mean, what an honor. How amazing. How fun. What a great experience to have in your past.
Yeah, you know what? It was a huge blessing. And the thing that, that a lot of people didn't know beforehand was literally 4 days before flying down to compete in the show, I landed on my ankle and I severely injured it. And so to be able, as you shared, to be able to have that experience, make it to the city finals was a huge blessing, despite having that setback a couple days before competing.
Pushing through when times are tough is very, very important. So, with that said, and with that, the experiences that you have, I want you to kind of now talk about some of the things that you talk about when you go out and speak. And one of the things that we talked about right before the show started was it is the personal engine check light. So, can you talk about
Yes.
that?
Yes, for me as leaders and thinking about the leaders that listen to your amazing podcast is for us to be an energized leader, we need to have energy. And one thing I realize is oftentimes as leaders, it's so easy to be focusing on different things in our lives and we forget to take care of ourselves. And the metaphor I use is that's like our engine checker, like speaking to us. Oftentimes in life, we're driving through the year, working on different projects, taking care of personal things, and the engine check light turns on. And the engine check light is our emotion saying, hey, you're exhausted. You need to give yourself some extra sleep. or you got to give yourself some grace for making this mistake. But similar to driving in a car, when people see an engine check light, not everybody stops and pulls over. Usually they just continue to drive through. And similar to a car, if we keep ignoring an engine check light, we will break down. Except for us, we will break down physically, mentally, and emotionally. And so, my encouragement for all leaders is that when you're feeling yourself feeling tired, exhausted, it's realized that's just your personal engine check light giving you a warning sign saying, hey, take a moment, just pull over and check in on yourself so that you can then make those changes and not have that breakdown, which will then usually cost more time and more energy and more emotional well-being later on.
I love what John Maxwell says. He in his book, The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth, he talks about the law of reflection, and that
Mm,
just essentially is pause and think. I mean, pause and think. Hey, let's just take 5 minutes. If we can't
yes,
take, if 5 minutes, or if you can take an hour, maybe some time off from work, but even 5 minutes just to take a breath and just kind of reset your day, that is going to just take you so much further in your goals and everything that you're doing. Tell
yes.
about your accident, because I think there's such a strong lesson in that by being distracted.
Yes. So the accent you're referring to is that I had a point when I was starting my speaking business where I was pretty much doing every single odd job that you can imagine just to make ends meet. I mean, I went from working part-time for a nonprofit. I did door-to-door sales for Xfinity Comcast. I even delivered phone books. And during that time, it was just a very hectic, chaotic time, but I didn't listen to my personal engine check light. I said, you know what? I'll just catch up on sleep tomorrow, next week. That next week turned to next month. And it just kept piling on until one day I was driving up to Seattle. And as I was driving through this intersection, the light turned from green to yellow. And being the responsible person I was that time, I was thinking, oh, I got to make this light. So I stomp on my gas pedal. And then as I was driving through the intersection, something on my dashboard fell down into my lap. Human nature, I looked down and then I looked back up. And as I looked up, the car in front of me stopped. So I stepped on my brakes, but it wasn't enough. And I rear-ended that person and I completely totaled my car. And this was one of those experiences that helped me to realize that I wasn't Superman. I wasn't invincible because of the pain I was in. And that helped me to realize of like, hey, I need to make time for me. And that's where that concept of that personal engine check light came out of is oftentimes people take time for themselves, usually when it's too late. All of a
Yes.
sudden they have a serious health issue or something happens in their personal life. It's like, oh, I need to change. And one thing I learned in life is either our lives can be an example for others or it can be a warning for others. And so my big thing is making sure that we take care of that personal engine check light so we don't have accidents like this happen in our lives.
A couple other things that I saw on a couple of your videos were the radio analogy and pushing past what's possible. Can you talk about one or both of those?
Yeah, so talk about the first analogy you're talking about is, oftentimes we hear the idea of like, oh, we have positive and negative self-talk. And one of the lessons that I've learned from different mentors is that, what, how can we share things in a way that connects the dots for people? And so one of the things I start just really pay attention is like, oh, sometimes it's easy. We hear the same thing over and over again. And one day it just clicked for me. How do we take that idea that we've commonly hear about self-talk but sharing a different perspective. So maybe for some people it would resonate more. And I was thinking about when we listen to music, whether it's radio in the car or you're listening to satellite radio, or maybe you're listening to Pandora, Spotify. And oftentimes we're listening to music, and if you don't like the song, you change it. Well, it's the same thing in life where we have songs that play in our playlist or the radio in our heads. And oftentimes it's not songs that serve and support us, whether it's like, you know what, you're not going to get that position, or you're not a good enough leader, a parent. And we got to learn how to change that playlist in our head. And when we do, we play that new song. That's when our leadership potential expands significantly.
Tell everybody about that is whack.
So that phrase, that is whack, it's funny because, in working for Tony Robbins, one of the most powerful lessons I've learned is that whenever we are in that kind of rut, whether it's that playing that bad song in our head, or we think, oh man, I got to make time for me, but I just don't have the time. He says, you got to create a pattern interrupt. And essentially, that is an external stimuli that shifts your focus from one thing to something else. Similar to, you could have the most difficult day at work. And let's say if you have children at home and imagine that they're young again, where they're sweet, they're cute, where they didn't talk back. But you come home and they greet you and they say, Mama, Papa, I loved you, I miss you. I mean, any stress you have completely disappears. But they were that pattern interrupt that helped you shift your focus from that really rough day to help you realize, wow, I have so much to be grateful for in my life. That phrase, that is whack, came when I was started speaking. And I was thinking, oh man, what can I say to create a pattern interrupt to help people change the playlist in their head? And I was like, and how about I say something as random as possible? Hold up, that is whack. And after I shared that, I remember I was thinking, oh, I gave some really valuable information. But after I got done speaking, people came up to me, all they would say is like, dude, that was great, but hold up, that is whack. And then that was a clue to me. I'm like, oh, maybe this is the random thing that can stick. And so that's where it came about over 17 years ago. After trying out a random phrase, that's the one that continues to, that what people remember.
That is whack. That is whack. I love it. I love it. I love it. And your personal brand mantra, I think, is unshakable resilience. And so,
Yes.
can you just share why you chose that?
I chose unshakable resilience is because this is something that has been a part of my life ever since I was born. My family, they escaped the Vietnam War. My dad was a fighter pilot alongside the United States. And when the war was over, he was taken away and he was forced into a re-education camp, essentially a prison for 4 years until my mom broke him out. They came to the United States with nothing, but yet I didn't feel that way because they did everything they could to provide for my brother and myself. One of the people that really embody this for me is my mom. She's the living, breathing definition of unshakable resilience, where she's 4'10", and I describe her as half Mother Teresa, half Terminator. And the
Oh,
reason why is because, I mean, she is a huge prayer warrior. She is always giving to others. But what people can't see from her 4'10" stature is that when she's the one that broke my dad out of re-education camp, when she came to America, she had to have one lung surgically removed. So she's lived with one lung for over 50 plus years of her life. She's had 10 major surgeries. Both shoulders are made of complete metal. And then she beat liver cancer twice.
wow.
And so for her, seeing my dad, they helped me to realize that this is what unshakable resilience looks like. And just to share, unshakable resilience for me is not about just being mentally strong and pushing through, because that's the old way of looking at things. Because sometimes when you just keep pushing through, it can lead to burnout
Yeah.
and breakdown.
Yeah.
And so for me, what unshakable resilience means, it is a muscle that each of us can develop in our lives. And we develop it by focus on being fit. And let me explain that, where I realized being fit was important when I competed on American Ninja Warrior. Being fit is not just about being strong, but it's also being flexible. It's having endurance, because on the American Ninja Warrior course, if you're just strong, you do well in certain obstacles, but then you would fail on the ones maybe that involve balancing or you flying through the air. You have to really adapt between different obstacles because every obstacle is unique and different. But also, you have to have the endurance to make it through the course, because it's not just one obstacle, it could be like 10 obstacles and you could be exhausted halfway through. And so, FIT stands to face reality head on, initiate change, and thrive together. My mom embodied all of this as she went through her health challenges and as she helped my dad escape the Vietnam War.
Oh, I love that story so much. If you were to give leaders one piece of advice, what would that be?
If I were to give leaders one piece of advice that can improve their impact, their influence, is I think about this quote by John Quincy Adams: if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and to become more, then you are a leader. Understand is that leadership isn't about the title that we hold or don't hold. Rather, it's who we are as a person, how we show up, and how we lead others through our actions. Because understanding is that we have a impact on other people, whether we realize it or not. It's sort of like when you take a pebble and you throw it into a pond, the ripple effects we see is when people share, oh, thank you so much, Desi, for those kind words, or thank you so much for your help. But it's the ripples that are underneath the water, the impact that we're having that maybe we don't see by the way that we lead, the way that we talk to others, have compassion for others. They don't share that with us, but it's realizing our impact is either a positive impact or a negative impact, whether we see it or not. So it's making sure it's our actions that inspire others, not just our words.
I love that, Juan. Now, behind you is a picture with some Lay's potato chips. I want you to tell everybody why you have Lay's potato chips on your wall.
Yes, so it's not because I love eating Lay's potato chips. It's not only that, but so that's a picture of me and my smile. And actually, I partnered with Lay's, and it was during the pandemic. And during that time, they wanted to spread smiles and positivity during this time. And so I was selected as one of the individuals where they featured, my face on chip bags
I love it.
nationwide.
I love that
But
picture. If
yeah,
you're listening by audio, you'll have to make sure you watch the YouTube video.
but then also in the back it shows kind of my
Oh,
story and what I do. And so I was honored to be
oh,
among the class of smilers for that year that were making a positive impact in their community and around the world. And I think what was really neat was not only did it spread positivity during a very challenging time all around the world, but proceeds from it, every bag that was purchased went to Operation Smile, which is an incredible nonprofit helping individuals have surgeries on cleft lips
yeah.
around the world. And so it was a beautiful experience to spread positivity locally, where we did a lot of different press work with the different media here, but also just to help spread some positivity during a challenging time and helping raise money for an incredible cause.
Oh, I love that. How fun is that? Well, we're going to
Yes.
end with one last question, and this is the fun question. So here you go. In the last month or two, have you purchased an amazing gadget or seen an incredible movie or read an incredible book? One or all those? What would you say?
You know what? The answer is yes. And the one that comes to mind is, one of the biggest things I feel is important in life is our relationships. Tony Robbins has a quote: the quality of your life is the quality of your relationships. And one of the most important relationships in my life is with my wife. And so we're constantly investing into our relationship, whether it's doing fun activities, fun things. And one of our recent investments was actually just like a yesterday, where we purchased Financial Peace University from Dave Ramsey.
I've
And
done
that,
it twice.
yes,
That's a
and
great investment.
yes, yes.
Oh, wow. Well, I'll make sure for all the listeners, I put a link in there for Financial Peace University because it really was a game changer for our family. So, yeah, awesome. I love that. And also, I'll put in the show notes where people can find you. So, go ahead and tell everybody.
Yep, you can go to my website, hoando.com, HOANDO.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much, my friend. You have been an awesome guest.
Awesome. Thank you, Desi.
You're welcome.